Good morning and welcome to my podcast. My name is Ailsa Kepi and I am here on Pleasure for Health. You can look me up on my website, pleasureforhealth.com. I'm a relationship and somatic coach, and I'm very excited today to talk to you all about touch. Touch is such an interesting word and a concept to really get yourselves open to, especially when we talk about intimacy, because really intimacy and relationships and touch go hand in hand. Most of us equate an intimate relationship with someone that we will probably be in physical contact with and touch. And, there's been many studies done, unfortunate studies actually done around touch and the fact that we actually need touch as human beings. We can't survive without touch. It's one of those basic needs. There was a study done around orphans in Romania back a few decades when they were, not touched and cuddled the way that you might hold an infant. They were fed and changed and things, but they weren't held and touched intimately, or kind of as a parent would hold a baby. And they actually had a lot of different, both psychological and physical um, things come up in their later in their lives that made it really hard. They had a lot of poor outcomes, failure to thrive, all those kinds of things. So it seems like a really important thing to wrap our heads around, especially now, given the fact that we've just kind of been experience a pandemic where we actually have been either afraid to touch or told not to touch each other, to stay 6 feet apart, and to kind of, I'm a body worker as well, and I've had a few clients that were not, they don't get touched by anybody unless they're coming for a massage, which is, really quite alarming to think about. So I think it's worth spending a little bit of time talking about touch. How can you bring touch into your life? Is it something that you can do on your own? Can you do it with, is it something you can negotiate with your partners or lovers? And, how might we go about doing that? So I think the first thing also to notice is that we actually call being touched, oh, that touched me. And we're not necessarily talking about a physical touch. We're talking about an emotional connection or an intimate kind of understanding. Oh, what you shared really touched me, kind of touched my heart. And of course, obviously, we're not really touching someone's heart, at least I hope you're not. And so it's interesting to notice that, yes, something has really brought you to a sense of yourself, your emotions, your feelings, and has brought that up in you. So there's like a humanness to that, an intimacy to that. And so, before we even get into physical touch, there's ways that you can touch each other, a friend or a loved one, or even a stranger on the street, just by smiling, just by interacting in any kind of way. So all of those things we call touch. Now, they're not as nurturing to our physical body as actual touch, but it brings that connection. And there is something very touching about having those feelings. It kind of makes us different than, maybe a non-human robot or something would not have that sort of ability to be touched in that way. Well, then again, maybe they will in the near future. But this is something that at the moment really makes us human. So there's that sort of touching. You might as well. I think I wrote a blog a while ago about a touch plan. Many of us started talking about this as touch professionals when we were seeing the fallout from COVID and the isolation that people were feeling. How could we bring touch to people's lives if they were, in quarantine on their own or isolated from other people or just didn't have an intimate partner? So, a touch plan could be as simple as having some beautiful fabrics or, buying some organic cotton sheets or a terry cloth or flannel robe or, stepping into a hot bath. These are all things that touch our body. And if we take the time to sort of notice or concentrate on those sensations on our body, that can go a long way towards fulfilling our needs for touch. And so you could, have a soft loofah mitt, or or maybe you like more rough touch. You could do body brushing, or you could get a more scratchy, when you kind of take the dead skin off your, in the bath, and you can kind of rub yourself with the loofah. That is a touch that can feel really good. Some people really like to have firm, tight clothing on because they feel held with that. And that's a kind of touch as well. Some people like the wispiness of wearing like really light, silky material and having it kind of float off their body. And that really light, feathery kind of touch. Some people can't stand that touch. So it is really interesting to kind of explore, well, what types of touch do I like? What types of touch do I really not like? And, how can I learn about that for myself? This is often something I do with couples when I'm coaching them, and they've, kind of grown apart on an intimate level, and they find it hard to connect physically. And, something we'll talk about is just, well, let's just find something that feels good to each, to your partner, so that you have a starting place, right? So, if you really love being stroked lightly on your inner arm, around your elbow or something, then your partner can do that for you. And that's that can be a very intimate touch just in and of itself, let alone going anywhere further with that. And it maybe your partner really likes being slapped, wherever you like being slapped. Some people really like it, or you like being squeezed. So where do you like being squeezed? And can you get that touch that they want just the way they want it? Because that makes you feel heard, right? It makes you feel seen and heard and understood. And that goes a long way towards creating a really intimate setting. Whether you ever say, make it to home base, as they say, or go any further intimately with your partner at that point, if they tell you, oh, I really love it when you take your hand, run your hands through my hair, and then you practice doing that touch just the way they like it, and they practice receiving that touch. So there's a lot to that. You don't want to, if you kind of shut down when you're being touched by your partner, which happens way more than we think, actually. If you find yourself shutting down, even though you like a particular type of touch, it's like, well, he didn't do the dishes today, or, she didn't put any lingerie on for me, or, that's really stereotypical things, by the way. But you know what I mean? If you're somehow rattled, or you're just upset with your partner, and then they try to do your favorite touch, it can feel really like, well, why are you doing this when, you couldn't be bothered to do this other thing? So, obviously there's relational pieces that have to get put into play there. You have to both agree that you're going to put aside all of the frustrations and just focus on the present time touch. And I would say that it's easy to start getting resentful about the fact that, you looked after 3 kids all day, you took the garbage out, you cooked dinner, and now your partner wants to just touch you, and you're like, well, wait a second, this isn't, what are you expecting from me? Instead of just receiving their touch as a way of feeling intimate. So if you can let go of those expectations and if you can put aside your other relational difficulties and just focus on the present time, I often suggest taking 10 minutes, even 5 minutes each. Ask your partner for a particular type of touch that you like. See if they can do it. You reciprocate, and you just do one touch each for 2 or 3 minutes, and then you swap, and then you say, well, that was really lovely. Now maybe we could go wash the dishes together, and actually find a way to do that together. So it's, touch is not going to save your marriage. And, many people do think that, if I touch my partner in the best way, they're going to forgive me for all of my shortcomings. And, it's possible, But I think it's more likely that relationships are very complex and, well-rounded if you really get into them. And so having a good psychological, emotional connection where you're not codependent on each other, where you're, bringing your full self, where you're doing, able to listen and hear other aspects of your relationship, then the touch can really accentuate either good or bad relationships. But on any front, having touch of some kind and actually allowing yourself to be touched the way you want and really taking it in, like if your partner's agreed to touch you for a few minutes the way that you want, that is a gift, and it's really important to take that in. So these are some of the aspects of touch that I think are really important. It's also great to realize that there are touch professionals out there, and I just wanted to bring this up because many of my clients, you do sometimes realize that you can't actually fulfill all of your intimate partner's needs and that you may want to go elsewhere. Like if you really love a 2 hour long massage, there's very few people that haven't been trained in massage that can do a 2 hour long massage without, feeling like their hands are sore or, if you don't have a table, like it can be really difficult. So if you know that you love to be touched and needed and all of that, maybe you decide to invest in yourself and your love of touch and you go for a massage every couple weeks, and you can use a touch professional in that way to fulfill your needs so that you're not, resentful to your partner. Well, why can't you massage me for this long? Whether you like light touches, whether you just like to be touched all day when your partner passes behind you and just touches your neck lightly or slaps you on the butt or whatever the touches are. Perhaps you're more touchy feely. You can negotiate those types of things. But there's also cuddlists. They are professional people that will cuddle you, and there might not always be someone in your particular area, but there are actually more and more trained people that will. It's a non-sexual form of touching that allows you to feel held, to feel, like they might stroke your hair, and they might just cuddle you for like an hour, and that would be your session. And so there are people that are trained to do that in a way that doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with them in any other way. You can just get your touch needs met. Some other types of professionals work with touch. I know sex workers and surrogate partners are often brought in just to work with this type of thing with touch. Whether you're wanting a specific type of touch that your partner is not able to do, or you haven't found, or you would prefer to keep on a very business type of level. You can ask for intimate touch. You can ask for, just very pedantic, not having any emotional overlay kind of touch. Sometimes it's nice to be really held by someone who you're never going to see again. Maybe you're able to let down your guard. Maybe you find that you find it hard to be really open and vulnerable with people that you actually care about and are spending time with, and it's easier to kind of drop into that space with someone who's just there for you in that moment. Because that's the thing, is in a relationship there's like a two-way there's a two-way expectation there, whereas with some touch and bodywork professionals, whatever they do, some of them will only be touching you, others will have two-way touch, but it'll still be a session that's about you. And sometimes that's important. So I think we have to let go of the shame in our culture of, having someone there for us. It's the same as going to a doctor when we need to see a doctor, going to a chiropractor, going to a touch professional, whether it's for therapy or whether it's for surrogacy or whether it's for learning to receive intimate touch. All of these aspects are really helpful. Part of my practice is around sexological bodywork and this type of educational touch, so that you can actually take the time to say and learn, what does my body like? What do I not like? How could I ask for this when I'm actually with my partner? So there's, lots of things we can learn about touch from people that work with touch all the time. And it is something we learn. I think it's often forgotten too in our society that some of these things are just assumed that everyone will be good at, and that's not true. And I've been researching a little bit about neurodivergence and the autism spectrum, coming up to Autism Awareness Day on Sunday, April 2nd. um, and noticing that not everybody has a similar way of looking at touch, and not everybody has skill with negotiating touch. And many people don't want to, or get confused by the overlay of intimacy or relationship that goes along with much of our social touching in our culture. So they're confused by that. Like, it's not a simple touch. Now it's a touch that means come with me, or stay over there, or love me, or there's so much nuance with touch that it can be difficult for people on the spectrum to actually wrap their heads around. So I've been researching that, and it's super interesting. So do let me know if you have some more ideas around touch and how it can work for you in your relationships, or just for you on your own to have touch, realizing that we are human in a physical body. We're having an experience, and touch is one of those experiences. So I'd love to hear how touch works for you in your life. Drop me a comment. Follow me on Podbean, Pleasure for Health podcast. You can find me on iTunes. It gets posted to YouTube. And like I said, check out my website, pleasureforhealth.com, for more ways that you can work with me or find out what I'm up to. All right. Thanks for joining me today, and have a wonderful day.